Bismillah.
Like.
تأكدت من الصوت؟ جيد؟
نعم.
شغال؟
نعم.
هلا كان في الوسط كذا منحني شوي. شوف؟
نعم.
It's a little crooked. شغال؟
It looks good.
You sure?
I'm not gonna take no risks.
بسم الله. جزاك الله خيرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Before we get started with tonight's class on اللؤلؤ والمرجان فيما اتفق عليه الشيخان, obviously we're still in Kitab al-Buyur, the book of sales or bargains, speaking on transactions, products, services, riba, trading, bartering, etc. Just don't forget, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, to continue to make dua for our Muslim, not Arab, but Muslim brothers and sisters in al-Islam, in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank, and in other occupied lands of Palestine. Do not forget to pray for them, for Allah to heal those who are wounded, to ease their suffering, to give them even more sabr on top of the unbelievable sabr that they have exerted and displayed over the years, that I don't think many people would have been able to. And please make dua for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy upon the ill, or upon the dead, those who have lost their lives, those who have become martyrs. Allahu alam, who is a martyr in his cause, we don't know, only Allah knows. But those in the night that we hope Allah Azza wa Jal will accept their martyrdom. And the Muslims who lost their lives, however they lost their lives, through an attack, through violence, through death, through sickness, whatever the case may be, may Allah have mercy upon them. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless of our sins, and regardless of our comfortable lifestyles that we're going to live, as we're speaking right now, it's warm because you have the heat on. It's cool because you have the air conditioning on. You have food. You have things to drink. If you get a toothache or a tummy ache, you can take a painkiller. If your wife's contractions begin, she goes to the hospital, so on and so forth. All of the different luxuries and the comforts that we have as we speak, Muslims in Palestine as we speak, they don't have those luxuries. And other parts of the world as well, whether it be Yemen or other parts. But right now, just talking about what's going on in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. Many things that we take for granted, they don't have. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us to have the courage to do something, to say something, regardless of our sins and regardless of we being caught in this this dilemma of paying taxes to support those massacres. and those bombs and bombings. And over the last couple of days, I think everybody should have more than enough clarity and common sense, let alone faith, to see what's going on, what has been going on, and what will continue to go on until Allah decides otherwise. And we have a responsibility and a role in that. There is no shame, there is no shyness, there is no discrimination when it comes to bombing and killing. Okay, whether it be a hospital, whether it be a refugee camp, whether the death toll, the ratio was 50 to 1, one terrorist leader at the expense of 50 civilians dead, not including those who are under the piles of dust and concrete and bricks and rubble. But if confirmed 50. So 50 to 1 ratio. That right there should show you the mindset of these people. If you already haven't come to discover their mindset over the last 200 years, 230 years, 75 years, 56 years, if you haven't reached yaqeen of who they are and what they are, then as we've mentioned, you're blind. But the things that are transpiring should clearly show you what you're dealing with. And you complaining and asking and begging and saying international law and humanitarian catastrophe, etc., 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 clearly it can show you that that is not going to change anything. And they do not care. And to a large extent, they have a free hand to do whatever they want to do. When hardcore questions are asked with regards to international law, with regards to the respect for civilians, then the representative, the anchor, the host, the journalist, they'll say, oh, well, I'm not that qualified to speak on this. I'm not an expert on this. I really don't know. Just like that, with no shame. The news is still developing. We're still figuring it out. We're still checking the numbers. I don't know. But if something is spoken about the Palestinians, about Hamas, or about ISIS, or any other group of people that they call terrorists, so on and so forth, then they're experts on everything. From political science, to warfare, to religion, everything. They have no shame in speaking about. But if they're asked a hardliner question, how do you explain what just happened? How do you, well, I don't know. I really don't know about that. Next question. Or cut you off, or change the subject, or dodge the question, or continue to play on your emotions by using those catchphrases: 9/11, terrorists, Holocaust, babies, so on and so forth. So it's time to wake up. It's been time to wake up for Muslims. It's been time. It's long overdue for us to come out of this slumber, this sleeping state. But if you're still asleep, and if you still have hope, and if you still think that these people care, and they value the life of the Muslims and their property and their honor, then it's not much that we can say to you. So snap out of it, come to the reality of what's going on, of who you're dealing with, and the solutions that you think are solutions are clearly not solutions. It's not working. Something else has to be done. Right? So we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to help our brothers there. It's very disheartening, extremely sad to see the Muslims just getting slaughtered and massacred and butchered just like that. And no one say anything. And those who do say something are powerless. And those who do have the power are unwilling to put forth the necessary costs to make a physical impact. Those of us who say nothing, which is extremely shameful. And then those who do speak, but we don't have the ability to, really make a change to a large extent. And then there are those who do have the ability, but they aren't willing to give up and to sacrifice. This warm cup of tea right now. Am I willing to jeopardize this? Am I willing to give up my comfortable home? Am I willing to give up the things that I've had, that I've received? So it's extremely unfortunate. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Our hearts go out to our brothers and sisters in Palestine and around the world. We continue to make dua for them, and we continue to make dua against the oppressors, against the wrongdoers, against the evildoers. It is what it is. There's no need to sugarcoat anything anymore. It's plain and it's clear on what's going to continue to happen. Allah hawla wa la quwwata illa billah hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. All right. So tonight's class, inshallah ta'ala, 16th chapter. It says, Babu nahi anil muhaqalati wal muzabana wa anil mukhabarati wa bay'i thamarati qabla buduwi salahiha wa an bay'i al muawama wa huwa bay'u sinin. Prohibition of al muhaqala, al muzabana, al mukhabara, the sale of fruits before their benefit is evident, and al-mu'awama. Hadith 992. Hadith Jabir ibn Abdullah radiyallahu anhuma. نهى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن المخابرة والمحاقلة وعن المزابنة وعن بيع الثمر حتى يبدو صلاحها وأن لا تباع إلا بالدينار والدرهم إلا العرايا. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, the Prophet ﷺ forbade the sales called al-mukhabara, al-muhaqala, and al-muzabana, and the selling of fruits till they are free from blights. He forbade the selling of fruits except for money, except the araya. All right. And obviously, as a 9 and 5 English speaker or reader, what do these terms mean? And why are they placed in Roman transliteration or the pronunciation? Why aren't they translated? What is muzabana? What is muhaqala? What is mukhabara? What is muzara? What are these things? What are they? What is mu'awama? What are these things? Before we get into what they are, we clearly conclude that they are prohibited. They are not to be done. Khayran inshallah ta'ala. That's first and foremost. In the hadith as well, without no translation of those terms, it clearly shows that they are prohibited. And that a Muslim is not to buy, a Muslim is not to sell in that manner. When it comes to agriculture, when it comes to farming, you aren't to sell in that manner or buy in that manner, and or vice versa. Khayr inshallah. So let's get into some of these terms. Bidnillah. An-Nawawi, may Allah have mercy upon him, he states in the commentary of Sahih Muslim, أما المحاقلة والمزابنة وبيع الثمرة قبل بدو صلاحها فسبق بيانها في الباب الماضي. As far as muhaqala and muzabana, we've explained them already. And those are basically prohibitions of selling different types of wheat, different types of grain, chaff versus husk. Selling it when it's still in its original wrapping or leaves. Trading it, passing the grain from one hand to another. One is for sure how much it is, how much it weighs. Is it good? Is it infested with insects? Is it soggy? Is it ripened? Versus those which are still growing. They haven't been cut down. They haven't been plucked. They haven't been harvested yet. Everybody clear on this? Selling the fruits before they are ripened. You don't know what could happen. You don't know what could take place. So on and so forth. Tayyib. That's first and foremost. وأما المخابرة والمزارعة متقاربتان وهما المعاملة على الأرض ببعض ما يخرج منها من الزرع كالثلث والربع وغير ذلك من الأجزاء المعلومة لكن في المزارعة يكون البذر من مالك الأرض وفي المخابرة يكون البذر من العامل هكذا قاله جمهور أصحابنا وهو ظاهر نص الشافعي. As far as mukhabara and muzara'a, then it's basically sharecropping. Sharecropping. In which we have an agreement. I own the land. You shall work the land. And your payment for that work and that labor will be a set or fixed portion of the produce, of the agriculture. So a third of what is produced, a third of the grain, a third of the corn, a third of the cotton, a third of the berries, a third of the citrus, whatever we're growing, that is going to be your payment. I'm the owner of the farm. I will receive 2 farms of the produce of the harvest. You will receive a third, a fourth, a half, etc. So that's sharecropping. So this hadith prohibits sharecropping. Why does it prohibit sharecropping? Because you're working for something which is unknown, for something which is risky, for something which there is no guarantee that you're going to be paid in full. What happens if nothing comes forth? What happens if a third of the fruits or the vegetables or whatever we're growing is spoiled and rotten? If there's a winter of freakish severity, cold wind and rain and ice, so on and so forth, it's a problem. And obviously the worker is going to be without any type of wage. The labor is going to be without any type of wage. Some scholars, they say that when the seeds are provided by the owner of the land versus when the seeds are provided by the actual sharecropper or the laborer, the farmer, then that's a different story. طيب. وقال بعض أصحابنا وجماعة من أهل اللغة وغيرهم هما بمعنى قالوا والمخابرة مشتقة من الخبر وهو الأكار أي الفلاح وهو الأكار أي الفلاح هذا قول الجمهور وقيل مشتقة من الخبار أو الخبار وهي الأرض اللينة وقيل من الخبرة وهي النصيب وهي بضم الخاء وقال الجوهري قال أبو عبيد هي النصيب من سمك أو لحم إلى آخره. وفي صحة المزارعة والمخابرة خلاف مشهور للسلف وسنوضحه في باب بعده إن شاء الله تعالى. وأما النهي عن بيع المعاومة وهو بيع السنين فمعناه أن يبيع ثمن الشجرة عامين أو 3 أو أكثر فيسمى بيع المعاومة وبيع السنين وهو باطل بالإجماع. نقل الإجماع فيه ابن المنذر وغيره لهذه الأحاديث ولأنه بيع غرر لأنه بيع معدوم ومجهول غير مقدور على تسليمه وغير مملوك للعاقد والله أعلم. طيب. He says, as far as sharecropping, mukhabara, muzara'a, then it's a controversial issue among the Salaf. The early scholars, they differed on the validity or the lack of validity of sharecropping. Is it lawful or not? And we will explain that in the coming chapter, he says. And as far as al-mu'awama or bay'u sinin, the selling of years, he says then that is prohibited according to all schools. All of the fuqaha agree that that's haram. I will sell you the fruits of my trees, my apple, my orange grove, my apple orchards, whatever the case may be, for 3 years ahead of time. Whether you pay me up front, you pay me yearly, every 6 months, that's prohibited. For obvious reasons, you don't know how much the trees will give or produce. Something could happen, anything can take place, and you cannot deliver. And that's a general proof, a general qaida in Islam. Whenever the product cannot be delivered, cannot be handed over with certainty or with confidence, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, then that action is what? Forbidden, prohibited. Everyone understand this? On the farm or other places. Clear on this, inshallah ta'ala. Paying for a service, a different story. Paying for a percentage, so on and so forth, that's a different story. But I'm going to take your wealth for something that I cannot guarantee to deliver to you. That's a mushkila Islamically. So any type of transaction that includes that is going to be for sure prohibited in al-Islam. And he says there's consensus regarding that. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Tayyib. Next chapter says, and obviously in Hadith 992, it says, وَأَنْ لَا تُبَاعِ إِلَّا بِالدِّينَارِ وَالدِّرْهَمِ إِلَّا الْعَرَايَا. He forbade the selling of fruits except for money, except for araya. We explained the araya, the dates that are still draping, hanging from the date palm trees, estimating them, counting them, how much they are, so on and so forth, how much they weigh, as long as it is a specific amount. It cannot be over a specific, it can be a gross amount. But khamsat awsuq, 5 wasqs. We explained that for the need and the necessity of the farmers, the difficulty, etc. And from the wisdoms behind this prohibition, selling fresh dates, dry dates, versus paying for the dates with money. And inshallah ta'ala, as we will explain, the different dynamics of riba. We have two products that are of the same genus. How they are or are not, aren't allowed to be better in quality. Mutafadil. Versus two things being traded which are from different genuses. Gold for the dates, silver for the dates. Versus this type of date for these types of dates, one is superior quality, inferior quality. Buying, selling in the moment, transaction which is immediate on the spot, versus later on consignment, so on and so forth. The dynamics of that. All of these fall under or are included in the discussion of riba when it comes to riba al-fadl. The riba that's pertaining to bartering and trading, and not riba nasi'ah, the riba based off of debt. Everybody clear on this or not? So there are rules with regards to that, and that's what's meant by that. Khairan inshallah ta'ala. Next chapter states, Babu Kira al-Atr. Hadith Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu qala, كانت لرجال منا فضول أراضين فقالوا نؤاجرها بالثلث والربع والنصف فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من كانت له أرض فليزرعها أو ليمنعها أخاه فإن أبى فليمسك أرضه. حديث أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من كانت له أرض فليزرعها أو ليمنعها أخاه فإن أبى فليمسك أرضه. حديث أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن المزابنة والمحاقلة والمزابنة اشتراء الثمر بالتمر في رؤوس النخل. حديث ابن عمر ورافع بن خديج عن نافع أن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما كان يكلي مزارعه على عهد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وأبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وصدرا من إمارة معاوية. ثم حدث عن رافع بن خديج أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى عن كراء المزارع فذهب ابن عمر إلى رافع فذهبت معه فسأله فقال نهى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن كراء المزارع. فقال ابن عمر قد علمت أن كنا نكري مزارعنا على عهد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بما على الأرباع وبشيء من التين أو عفوا بشيء من التبن ليس التين. طيب. Chapter 17 says leasing out land. Leasing out land. What is the Islamic ruling or the Islamic rulings on leasing out land? Renting out your land. What's the ruling on that? Several hadiths. First is hadith number 993. As narrated Jabir ibn Abdullah. Some men had excess land, and they said that they would give it to others to cultivate on the condition that they would get 1/3 or 1/4 or 1/2 of its yield. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever has land should cultivate it himself, or give it free to his brother for cultivation. But if his brother refuses, then he should keep for himself. 994, narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, whoever has land should cultivate it himself or give it free to his brothers for cultivation. But if the brother refuses, then he should keep it for himself. Hadith 995, narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Allah's Messenger ﷺ forbade al-muzabana and al-muhaqala. And why is the author continuing, the translator, to mention the terms in their Roman transliterated style, phonetic style? What benefit is that to the reader? He states, is the selling of fresh dates still on the trees for dyed, plucked dates, as we explained. The last hadith of the chapter is 996. It's narrated Nafi' Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu used to rent his farms during the times of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and in the early days of Muawiyah. Then he was told the narration of Rafi' bin Khadij that the Prophet ﷺ had forbidden renting of farms. Ibn Umar went to Rafi' and I accompanied him. He asked Rafi', who replied that the Prophet ﷺ had forbidden the renting of farms. Ibn Umar said, "You know that we used to rent our farms in the lifetime of Allah's mix of irrigation channels for a certain amount of tibin." It says chopped straw. Okay. Nawawi, may Allah have mercy upon him, he states, he says here, واختلف العلماء في كراء الأرض فقال طاووس والحسن البصري لا يجوز بكل حال سواء أكراها بطعام أو ذهب أو فضة أو جزء من زرعها لإطلاق حديث النهي عن كراء الأرض. وقال الشافعي وأبو حنيفة وكثيرون تجوز إجارتها بالذهب والفضة وبالطعام والثياب وسائر الأشياء سواء كان من جنس ما يزرع فيها أم من غيره، لكن لا تجوز إجارتها بجزء أو بجزء ما يخرج منها كالثلث والربع وهي المخابرة، ولا يجوز أيضا أن يشترط له زرع قطعة معينة. وقال الربيعة يجوز بالذهب والفضة فقط. وقال مالك يجوز بالذهب والفضة وغيرهما إلا الطعام. وقال أحمد وأبو يوسف ومحمد بن الحسن وجماعة من المالكية وآخرون تجوز إجارتها بالذهب والفضة وتجوز المزارعة بالثلث والربع وغيرهما. وبهذا قال ابن شريح وابن خزيمة والخطابي وغيرهم من محقق أصحابنا، وهو الراجح المختار وسنوضحه في باب المساقات إن شاء الله تعالى. Now he discusses what the scholars say regarding this issue, whether they're using these hadiths as their proofs and or other proofs. He says the scholars, they differ on this issue, on renting out land, leasing land. The first madhab, the first view, the first school of thought is that of Tawus and Hasan al-Basri, meaning from the Tabi'een, the successors of the Sahaba. They said it is unlawful to rent out land, period. No matter what the compensation is. Foodstuffs, grain, silver, gold, sharecropping, a part of the land, period. And obviously they base their view off of these hadiths. If you have land, cultivate it yourself. If you don't want to cultivate it, you're too busy, it's too much work, then what? Donate it to your brother. And if you don't want to donate it to your brother, then what? Keep it. All right. Okay. So that's the first opinion. Second opinion, the second school is that of Shafi'i, rahimahullah, Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, and many. And that is, it's lawful for land to be rented out with the compensation of gold, silver, foodstuffs, clothes, and anything else. Even the crops and the agriculture that comes from the farm itself. But it cannot be the sharecropping, in which the payment is based off of the percentage of what is put forth from the earth. There's a difference. I will work according to this view, person says, I'll work your farm and you are to pay me 50 pounds, 50 sacks of wheat every month or every harvest. Versus, I work for you, I'm sharecropping with you, and my payment is a percentage Everyone understand the difference here? Okay? Khairan, inshallah ta'ala. Now, when I used to work in the barbershop, I remember there were two main ways that the barbers would pay their rent, their chair in that barbershop if they didn't own it. You either paid a flat out rate or you paid a percentage on every head that you cut. You pay, you're renting the chair like an apartment, like a storefront, or it's based off of how many customers you get. So the problem here with the sharecropping, according to Shafi'i and Abu Hanifa, that second view, the first view is that it's prohibited, period. The second view is that it's allowed, but it cannot be sharecropping, in which you receive the funds based off of a ratio from the produce, from the harvest, for the reasons that we explained. As far as if I agree to pay you those 50 sacks of wheat, I'm to provide you with that wheat no matter what my farm produces. I would understand the difference here. We understand the difference. Tight. No email of mercy upon him, he states. That's mukhabara. Another impermissible even within the second opinion, is that a person makes a condition that he'll only work on or the harvest of a specific spot, a specific section of it. La. So a person is to be paid, the land can be rented out, right? It can be leased out, so on and so forth, whatever the case may be, but not based off of the ratio of the produce, of the agriculture. Tight, moving forward. وقال ربيعة, a third view, is that it can be done with gold and silver. That's it. No food. Nothing that's grown. But gold and silver. And obviously this opinion is trying to avoid any problems with the riba and any problems with the labor that isn't based off of certain income. I would understand this. The crops, there's no guarantee that they'll what? Grow. And there's no guarantee that that labor will be pleased. And there's no guarantee, etc., etc. But the gold and silver is what? Clear. Everyone understand this? The payment in the gold and silver is clear. Moving forward. وقال Malik rahimahullah, he said gold and silver and other things except for food stuff. No grains, nothing like that. Ahmad, Abu Yusuf, Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, and many other Malikis, they said gold and silver. And the sharecropping can be done with a third or a fourth. It is lawful. Nawawi rahimahullah says that that's the correct view. And he says we'll explain that later on, why he calls that the correct view. فأما طاووس والحسن فقد ذكرنا حجتهما وأما الشافعي وموافقوه فاعتمدوا بتصريح رواية الرافع بن خديج وثابت بن الضحاك السابقين في جواز الإجارة بالذهب والفضة ونحوهما وتأولوا أحاديث النهي تأويلين. And then nobody goes on to explain their proofs and to explain their evidences. Shafi'i's view versus the third, the fourth view, so on and so forth. Khairan inshallah ta'ala. We'll save that further discussion when it comes in the book. What's important is, once again, we see and we learn is that the Muslims are allowed to make whatever agreements and contracts that they please, as long as they don't fall under the prohibitions. Directly or indirectly, explicitly or inexplicitly. How you wish to get paid, when you wish to get paid, how much work, the nature of the work, that's all up to your discretion. As long as it isn't in clash with a authentic prohibition, authentic hadith, let alone from the Quran. Clearly stating that you cannot do this, you cannot be paid in this way, you cannot rent this, you can't sell this product. Everyone understand this? Khamar. The Prophet forbade the sale of khamar. He forbade its income, its the sales, anything that comes from it. There's nothing to discuss. Muslim can sell any other type of drink that he wants to, as long as it isn't poisonous or harmful to the people. Call it what you want, say, give it whatever name, title, that's up to you. Meat and flesh. As long as it's not the flesh of swine, it's not the flesh of an animal which is poisonous or venomous, and it is something which is considered to be filthy and foul, tafaddal. You have a place in which you sell veggie burgers, That's your discretion. Do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't fall under a prohibition. So that's a general rule with regards to the buying and to the selling. And of course, this goes to show us that there are rules behind farming and sharecropping, right? And of course, the agriculture of any country and any land is going to be of crucial importance. Wars were started because of farms and because of agriculture, and that's because people have to eat. It's just that simple. People have to eat. When I'm talking about luxury items, silk, when I'm talking about these, I'm talking about basic grain. People will starve. People have to eat, right? People need food, okay? And agriculture has always been a major means of conflict, of warfare, and of military armed struggle. It always has been and it will be. Wallahu musta'an. It's still different than the